Good morning. Good morning, folks. Welcome to my live stream. Welcome to my live stream. Thank you for joining me. Good morning, folks. Welcome to my live stream. My name is Jim, and I used to be a type 2 diabetic. Let's check my... Boy, that visual, that is awful, isn't it? Let's see if this one is better. That looks better. I think the image came clear. Good morning, folks. Welcome to my live stream. I think our image is better now. I think it's fixed. Good morning, folks. Welcome to my live stream. I apologize for that. It looks like I was having a little bit of some video quality errors happening. Welcome to my live stream. My name is Jim, and I used to be a type 2 diabetic. And I say that I used to be a type 2 diabetic very, very, very intentionally. I have reversed my type 2 diabetes. I'm in remission from my type 2 diabetes. I don't take medication for my type 2 diabetes anymore. That's because my doctor says I don't need it. So however you want to word it, I just don't have diabetes anymore. And I love doing these live streams and telling people exactly what it is that I do to achieve that. I'm going to get rid of that background. I think that's a little bit distracting. I love doing these live streams and telling people exactly what it is that I do to achieve those results. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, then stick around for this live stream. I know we are broadcasting to multiple platforms right now. So if you have a question, please ask questions. I'm going to throw a lot of information out there. Basically, what I like to do is talk about what is the problem, what caused it, and how do we fix it. And it's pretty simple, guys, pretty simple. I was a 12.2% A1C. I'm now a completely unmedicated 5.1% A1C. So if that is interesting to you, then stick around for this live stream, and I will tell you every single thing that I do. Now, I've got a number of different platforms. We're actually live on 10 different platforms right now. So let me do a few rounds of introductions for some of the other platforms where people are just now coming in, and then we'll dive right into this, okay? Folks, welcome. First off, good morning. Happy Sunday morning. Beautiful day here in Denver, Colorado. Welcome to my live stream. My name is Jim, and I used to be a type 2 diabetic. And I love saying I used to be a type 2 diabetic. I have reversed type 2 diabetes. I'm in remission from type 2 diabetes. I don't take medication for type 2 diabetes anymore. That's because my doctor took me off of it. I used to have a 12.2% A1C. As of last week, I've been off medications for about 14 and a half months. My A1C was 5.2%. So however you want to word it, I just don't have diabetes anymore. And I love doing these live streams and telling people exactly what it is that I do to achieve that. So if that is something that sounds interesting to you, then stick around for this live stream. I'm going to tell you everything that I do to achieve that. More than that, if that's something that sounds like something somebody you know or care about may benefit from, then share this live stream with them and let's help get them healthy, okay? So without further ado, what did I do to achieve that type 2 diabetes remission? Well, the very first thing I did was started focusing on its root cause. Now, I want to share a screen here real quick, and we're going to talk about root cause. If we kill the root, we kill the tree. Here is a screen. Okay, now what this is depicting really is insulin resistance is the root cause for all of these different conditions, okay, including type 2 diabetes. If you are type 2, look at insulin resistance. If you reverse your insulin resistance, well, you'll reverse your type 2 diabetes. So what we're going to be focusing on today is the topic of insulin resistance. So what is insulin resistance? I love talking about this. What is insulin resistance? Let's start with what is insulin, the easiest one. What is insulin? And I'm never trying to insult anybody's intelligence, by the way. If you know what insulin is, you probably just do one of these for a moment. But for me personally, I did not know what it was. And I was freaking diabetic. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what its role was. So for the rest of us, when you consume a carbohydrate, something like a piece of bread, your body converts that carbohydrate to glucose, and that glucose, sugar, goes out to your bloodstream. Now, that is what your cells use for energy. Now, in a perfect world, the cells just kind of go around and gobble up the glucose, right? But that's not the case. The cells are actually locked. The glucose can't just go into them. And when they need a key, your insulin, that's where insulin comes into play. Your pancreas secretes a hormone called insulin. And one of the jobs of that hormone is to act as a gatekeeper or a key to kind of unlock the cell for the glucose to go in. Now, when the cell stops responding to the insulin, that's insulin resistance. Okay, and what happens next? Well, the glucose doesn't go away. It just continues climbing. It continues elevating. And then what happens then? Well, what tells the pancreas to secrete insulin is blood sugar, right? And so the pancreas starts secreting more and more and more insulin. So while you're becoming ever more hyperglycemic or elevated blood sugar or elevated insulin, you're also becoming more and more and more hyperinsulinemic or elevated insulin. And that hyperinsulinemia, elevated insulin, is what's causing the cells to stop responding. So if you would like to become insulin sensitive, if you would like to reverse your insulin resistance, well, start lowering the insulin in your bloodstream. That's what we're going to be talking a lot about today, is some insulin lowering strategies. And as you lower your insulin, guess what? Your glucose will drop. Guess what? You'll begin to reverse that insulin resistance, and all of these other things that you're plagued with, this image behind me, those will all get better. It's just easy. Now, it requires work. It definitely requires work, but it's highly achievable. So we've thought of type 2 diabetes as chronic and progressive, non-reversible, right? Well, its root cause, insulin resistance, we can resensitize the cell to the insulin. It is reversible. And if the root cause is reversible, guess what? So is the symptom. There's something to think about. Why don't we stop calling it a chronic and progressive disease? Let's call it a symptom. Just got to deal with the symptom, right? How do you deal with the symptom of anything? Deal with its root cause. That's what we're talking about, okay? So with that being said, it looks like I'm not connected on my chat again. Good morning, Tracy. How are you? Good morning, Lainey. So we are live across multiple platforms, and it does not appear as though my chat is connected. So occasionally, if you have questions, I'm going to try and just cover all the bases, but it does appear as though my chat is not connected for some reason. So with that being said, let me dive into this. I'm going to grab a quick drink. So we know what is insulin? What is insulin resistance? What causes insulin resistance is hyperinsulinemia. There are a few other things as well. Stress load, poor sleep. I mean, many of you probably have high stress, poor sleep, that sort of thing. So there are some other contributing factors, but you can't have insulin resistance without hyperinsulinemia. They absolutely go hand in hand. So address the hyperinsulinemia, and I bet you'll start to notice the other conditions just get easier. So now, what else does hyperinsulinemia or insulin resistance cause? There's the other thing. What else does it cause? Are we just talking about type 2 diabetes, or are there other conditions that are caused by it? The reason I bring this up is this is Dr. Ben Bikman's profile on BYU's website. So this is byu.edu. Now, Dr. Ben Bickman is a professor of cell biology and physiology at BYU. Dr. Bickman understands the interaction between insulin and the cell probably better than anybody else in the world right now. This is what he does. You'll see his research interests. He's the head of the laboratory of obesity and metabolism, insulin resistance. This is what he specializes in. He's got his master's, bachelor's, and his doctorate bioengineering. You'll see the courses that he's taught. He's teaching the finest, the brightest minds in the world about this exact topic. Okay. Now you'll see the number of times that he's been published, well over 30 times, and all talking about metabolic diseases, obesity and glucose intolerance, biomarkers of metabolism and glycemic control. This is what he does. Okay. Dr. Ben Bickman. The reason I bring him up is I'm going to reference him quite a bit throughout this live stream. If you go to Google and you type in Dr. Ben Bickman and insulin resistance, you'll get about 270,000 results. He is widely perceived to be the top metabolic scientist in the world. Now, he has a website called insuliniq.com. This website right here is a place to go and get educated on your sickness. If you don't want to listen to me, this is a great resource for you. I would suggest you join. I'm a member as well. It's huge. It's wonderful. By the way, I'm in no affiliation with Dr. Bickman. I'm just a big fanboy of his. You'll see the intro, Dr. Ben Bickman, professor, author, researcher, and metabolic scientist. He's got a book called Why We Get Sick. I've got my copy of it right here. This book will absolutely change your life. If you are looking to figure out why you're getting sick, start with this book right here, Why We Get Sick. If you're curious about the books, I'm going to throw out a number of books that I recommend reading. They're all available on audiobook. If you're ever curious about some of the books that I recommend, there is a link in my bio to an affiliate. It's an affiliate link to Amazon that has all the books that I recommend. You don't have to use my affiliate link if you don't want to. I just try to make it easy there. So if you'd like Why We Get Sick, the link is in my bio. It'll say educational books. Go there. Also, while you're there, you'll see social media platforms. Follow me everywhere that you see me there. If you're on one of those, give me a follow there. Okay, so if I scroll down a little bit further on Ben Bickman's page, I come across that image that I started this live stream off with. I took that image from Ben Bickman's page. Okay, I didn't just make that image up. And what I want to do is ask a question here. How many of you suffer from one or more of those conditions? If you suffer from one or more of those conditions, type me, type I do, type something like that, me or I do. Also, guys, know that right now my chat feature is disconnected, so I can't see the chat very well on TikTok. So I do have a lot of viewers on TikTok right now. I can't see your chats very easily. I've got my phone going with the live stream, so I will occasionally look down to here. But if I miss a question, I will be visually looking down, and I'll ask that question across all the platforms. Okay, so this right here, this image that's above me, let's go like this. Let's go like this. Let's use this one. That image right there. Do you suffer from one or more of those problems? You just type yes or no if you suffer from one or more of those problems. Now, the goal is to address the root cause. If you address the root cause, guess what? All of those symptoms get better. So I've talked about, okay, we've got a lot of people saying yes already. Okay. So this conversation really is about that, insulin resistance. What are we doing to reverse it? So with that being said, without further ado, let's dive into what I do to reverse my insulin resistance that ultimately led to my reversal of my type 2 diabetes. In addition to that, I no longer have high blood pressure. I no longer have high cholesterol. I've got the energy of a 17-year-old. I've not felt this good in 30 years. It's amazing. So other things will happen as well. But since I started off with type 2 diabetes, let's talk about that. That's how I reverse this. So if you have any of those conditions, this conversation applies to you. If you know anybody who has those conditions, share this live with them right now. Let's get them into this conversation. Okay, what did I do to reverse my type 2 diabetes? Well, the first thing that I did was focused on that problem, reversing insulin resistance. What did I do there? There are 3 steps, 3 easy steps that I adhere to every single day. And in adhering to those 3 steps every single day, I have reversed it, okay? They're non-negotiable to me. Oftentimes I get asked about things like cinnamon or cayenne or berberine. I don't have a problem with those. They're all natural. They're probably not going to ultimately fix the root cause, but are they helpful? Absolutely. What about keto or carnivore or vegetarian or vegan, plant-based? They're going to help. I'm none of those, okay? I'm absolutely none of those. Do they help? Absolutely. So if that's your thing, then apply it to this and it will just make it more successful, okay? So the 3 non-negotiable things that I do, number 1 is intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting, a time-based eating schedule. So out of a 24-hour day, I don't eat for 16. I do have 2 meals in the remaining 8 hours. So for me personally, what this really looks like is at around 8 o'clock at night, I'm done eating for the day. Done eating for the day. And I don't eat again until noon the following day. And from noon until 8, I allow myself 2 meals. The level of commitment I'm talking about is skipping breakfast. I'm not talking about going for days on end, okay? I'm talking about skipping breakfast. Now, if I say I'm done eating at 8, what does that sound like, really? Well, I've had dinner. I'm full. I don't need any more food. I don't need any more food. I'm full, right? If I were to eat past 8 o'clock, it's probably out of habit or boredom or something like that. Probably not something I should be doing. Now, when I wake up in the morning, I skip breakfast. If you like breakfast, if you like bacon and eggs, have them at lunch, have them at noon. You can have what we call breakfast at noon. In fact, what is breakfast? It's when do you break your fast, right? When are you going to break your fast? Now, let me make sure I'm not missing. Thank you, Tanya, by the way. On TikTok, Tanya is typing things like the steps. If you like to take a screenshot on TikTok, those steps are there for you to take a screenshot. And if I get going too fast, just say something and I will repeat it. In fact, Tracy, would you mind checking out the other feed? The other feed and just making sure that I don't have any questions over there that I'm missing. I want to make sure that all the platforms are getting their questions responded to. Okay, so intermittent fasting. Now, what are we really doing? Remember, the goal of this thing is it's an insulin lowering strategy. Thank you, Tracy. It's an insulin lowering strategy. We're trying to lower our insulin. Well, what causes insulin? Always look at root cause. What causes insulin? Well, glucose. What causes glucose? The things that we eat. If you want to lower the glucose, if you want to lower the insulin, start with what you're eating. Minimize the eating. That's what we're talking about, skipping breakfast. So your glucose is going to come down. What's going to happen in addition to that? Your insulin levels will come down. Now, other things are happening to your body. All of us, probably a lot of us, maybe not all of us, but a lot of us probably have a little bit of an added love handle thing, situation going on that we're not really proud of. We want to see that go away. What is that fat on our bodies for? That fat is an added fuel source. So, what do I mean by that? Let's rewind the clock to before refrigeration, before pantries. We wouldn't eat. We didn't have just loads of food available. The hunter-gathering stage of our development, they would pass a bush and grab some nuts and berries and that sort of thing and eat that, and then walk or run for another 6 hours and maybe come across another bush at that point. and they would eat another few handfuls, right? And then every now and then they would get a protein and be able to consume that. But it might be days before proteins, right? And so their body is storing some of that excess fuel that they don't need at that very moment. It's storing it on your body. It's storing it in the form of fat. It's for times of famine. That's why it's there. If you want to get rid of this, switch your metabolic fuel source over to it and start using it. Metabolic switching. There's a doctor, Mark Mattson. He's a neuroscientist at Johns Hopkins Medical University. And that's actually where I've heard of that. Metabolic switching was from Dr. Mark Mattson. Fascinating follow. If you're into reading, go and look up Dr. Mark Mattson. He's been studying intermittent fasting for more than 25 years. And he would say that at around 12 to 14 hours, your body metabolically switches its fuel source from glucose to fat. If you want to see the fat melt off, start using it for a fuel. Now, that happens at about 12 to 14 hours. So do you want to stop at 12 hours? No. Every minute past that is fat burning mode. So what if you went to 16 hours? You got 2 hours of fat burning. What if you went to 18 hours of fasting? And this probably seems unreasonable for a lot of people. I get it. So we just start small and you work your way up and it becomes very, very, very easy. So the other thing that happens, what's happening to our glucose when we are in fat burning mode? When we've switched over to fat, where's our glucose? It's way down. Where's our insulin then? Our insulin is super suppressed simultaneously. If we have to lower our insulin to promote insulin sensitivity, what are we doing right there? It's promoting insulin sensitivity. You're actively reversing insulin resistance. That very thing that was the problem, right? We're actively promoting insulin sensitivity. Voila. This is key. Okay, so who's heard of Joslin Diabetes Center? If you've heard of Joslin Diabetes Center, type I have. I'm really kind of curious how many people have heard of Joslin Diabetes Center. So this is Joslin Diabetes Center, joslin.org, joslin.org. And Joslin Diabetes Center has been improving the lives of diabetes patients since 1893, 131 years ago. This is the history page, Joslin Diabetes Center, and that is Dr. Elliot Joslin. Dr. Elliot Joslin graduated med school in the 1800s. And understand that during the 1800s, diabetes was extremely rare, extremely rare. It was so rare, in fact, that there really wasn't a reason to have a doctor specialize in it. However, when Dr. Joslin graduated med school, he'd find out that both his aunt and his mother had diabetes. And for that purpose, Dr. Joslin went into specializing. He started specializing in diabetes. He was one of the first to do so. In fact, Dr. Joslin would eventually write of the treatment of diabetes mellitus in 1916, so 108 years ago. Now, what Dr. Joslin thought the keys to diabetes management was strict glucose control and intermittent fasting. Voila. If we had strict glucose control and intermittent fasting, this would be a walk in the park. And we know strict glucose control to be true. We absolutely know this is true, right? If you have diabetes, control your glucose and you'll control your diabetes. We know that to be fact. But do we talk about the other portion of his formula, which was intermittent fasting? And I would argue, no, we don't talk about that. In fact, he would write of this in 1916 that temporary periods of undernutrition are helpful in the treatment of diabetes, will probably be acknowledged by all after these 2 years of experience with fasting. What was Dr. Joslin suggesting there was that this wasn't that big of a deal. All we have to do is stop eating so frequently, and the problem will probably just kind of go away on its own. Did we heed his advice? No. In fact, just a few years after Joslin wrote this, what am I doing there? After a few years after Dr. Joslin wrote this, we would discover insulin. And they would sell that insulin patent for $1 to a pharmaceutical company because, well, they felt like the world needed insulin. It wasn't something that should be held by an institution. In 1923 was when that patent was sold. Type 2 diabetes was extremely rare. type 1 was the more prominent. And truthfully, the number of type 1 diabetics is probably extremely rare. There's not a whole lot of them, right? Not a whole lot of them. Now, the type 1s don't produce any insulin at all, and the institution in Toronto that developed insulin, that discovered insulin, didn't want to keep it to an institution. They thought it belonged to the world. This was life-saving, and they sold the patent for $1. In 2022, the global human insulin drug market was estimated to be $45 billion. They took that $1 and they turned it into a $45 billion industry in 100 years. All the while, that same 100 years, we never talk about intermittent fasting. Now, $45 billion. I want to ask the question, and we've got a number of followers on a lot of different platforms. Between all the platforms, we're at about 40-something viewers right now. I want to ask the question. How many of you are type 2 diabetics and currently giving yourself insulin therapy? As in, you are a type 2 diabetic, and you inject yourself with insulin because you've been told you are insulin dependent. Now, I want to go over to my TikTok page. Oh, wow. That popped up real easy for me. Here we go. Went right to the page, actually. That's weird. Okay. This is Dr. Ben Bickman, that same doctor I was talking about earlier, talking about the dangers of insulin, injecting insulin as a type 2 diabetic, okay?
Disease, essentially the clinician is saying, well, to heck with your insulin. Who cares if we push it up even higher? They might not even know where it is. All they know is if they push the insulin up even higher, the glucose will in fact come down. And because that's the target, the glucose, they believe they're achieving the optimal outcome. However, it's much more complicated and sinister than that. The more aggressively we're giving the type 2 diabetic insulin to control their glucose, the faster we kill them. They are 3 times more likely to die from heart disease, and twice as likely to die from cancer, and twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's disease. And throughout all of it, they need more and more and more insulin because they're becoming ever more resistant to it.
There it is, right? That is one of the world's leading metabolic scientists talking about the dangers of injecting insulin if you're a type 2 diabetic. And you're probably saying, well, what do? I need it. If you're type 2, your problem isn't a lack of insulin, you are hyperinsulinemic. Okay? And if you are, I listened to a lecture from Dr. Jason Fung, who I'll talk about here shortly, but there's the thought that eventually it's chronic and progressive because eventually your pancreas just quits producing insulin. Dr. Fung says that no, in fact, you have fatty pancreas, and that fat is blocking the beta cell pores and restricting the flow of insulin into your bloodstream. So he would say that it is always a reversible disease. It's a completely reversible. It's not chronic and progressive. In fact, he doesn't call it a disease. It's a condition. Okay, so how many people are listening? Just listen to Dr. Bickman say those words and found those words to be powerful. If you heard that and you thought, hey, man, that resonates, I hope it did. Now, I just talked about Dr. Jason Fung. Anybody heard of Dr. Jason Fung? Dr. Fung is a nephrologist out of some type 2 can have better long-term health with temporary use of insulin. I got an interesting, I'm speaking misinformation. I've got a detractor on TikTok. That was not me that was speaking misinformation. That was Dr. Ben Bickman. Take it up with him. I just wanted to address that real quick. Okay. If you have a problem with what Dr. Bickman said, go have a conversation with Dr. Bickman. Okay. Just did, Tanya. Yes, by the way. Okay. Who's heard of Dr. Jason Fung? Dr. Jason Fung is a nephrologist out of Toronto, Canada. Dr. Jason Fung has been, he studies kidneys, and he found a relationship between poor kidney health and insulin resistance. He thought that if we were to reverse the insulin resistance, it would have a profound effect on the kidneys. And he was right. And so what did Dr. Jason Fung do? Well, first off, Dr. Fung is a 5-time best-selling author. He's written books like The Diabetes Code, The Obesity Code, The Cancer Code. One that I always talk about, Life in the Fasting Lane. Great book. Okay. What did Dr. Jason Fung do? Dr. Fung went to the work of Dr. Elliot Jocelyn from a century ago. Strict glucose control and intermittent fasting. In fact, I didn't know about Dr. Elliot Jocelyn until I was listening to a lecture from Dr. Jason Fung. Strict glucose control and intermittent fasting. So, strict glucose control. What Dr. Fung did was implement a low-carb, high-fat diet. You may have heard of something called keto. Low-carb, high-fat. In today's society, in 1980, we switched the food pyramid to go for 6 to 11 different servings of carbohydrates and start watching your fatty foods. Reduce the fat and increase the carbohydrates. Around that 1980 time frame, we went to a high-carb, low-fat diet. Right? And what has our obesity rate done? What has our diabetes rates done? What all of these things, heart failure, is all gone up. We've become more and more and more insulin resistant, adhering to a high carb, low fat diet. As a society, high carb, low fat, right? What Dr. Fung did was flip that script. He said, no, let's look at a low carb, high fat diet. Restrict the carbs because the carbs convert to the glucose, which causes that insulin to spike. Minimize the carbs. You have a carb. I hate to say this to type 2 diabetics because they don't want, I was one of them. I didn't want to accept it. You have an intolerance of carbohydrates. Your body doesn't know what to do with them. It struggles with them and you're getting sick because of it. Restrict them and you will get healthy. Okay. Now, what Dr. Fung did was a very strict low-carb, high-fat diet with a very strict intermittent fasting schedule. He also stripped all the processed foods, no more seed oils, highly processed. They weren't an option. We're going to eat whole foods. And guess what happens when you eat whole foods? Your body heals. So, Dr. Fung implemented that and had amazing success. People reversing kidney disease, kidney failure, people reversing heart disease, type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetes, type 2 diabetes. I always talk about this book, Life in the Fasting Lane. One of the reasons I like it so much is one of the co-authors not only had type 2 diabetes, but she had PCOS and she was infertile because, of course, the number one cause for infertility amongst women in the United States is polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS. So when she reversed her insulin resistance, she reversed her type 2, her PCOS, she also reversed her infertility. Her and her husband have had babies now, all naturally, the good old-fashioned fun way. It's an amazing book. It's amazing education. Again, you don't ever have to use my affiliate links, but if you wanted to know the books that I do recommend, there's a link in my bio. It says educational books, and I would read them in that order. I also like to talk about. Thank you, C.W. Dawson. I appreciate that. C. Dawson. Thanks, Craig. I'm joined by a a nurse practitioner on my TikTok live stream right now. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. And he's just validating what I said. Type 2 diabetics produce plenty of insulin. Their cells just aren't responding. That's a nurse practitioner on my TikTok feed right now. Okay. If you are a woman, your hormones are different than mine, obviously. And your hormones change depending on your cycle, where you're at in that time of month. And your fasting may need to change based on those. So there is a Dr. Mindy Pelz, P-E-L-Z, Dr. Mindy Pelz. She wrote a book called Fast Like a Girl. If you're interested in learning about fasting and you are a woman, Dr. Mindy Pelz, Fast Like a Girl. Again, that link is in that same educational books link in my bio. So, are there any questions about what's up, guys? Good morning, Ro. Good morning, Michelle. Are there any questions about step 1 of the protocol, which is simply intermittent fasting, a 16 and 8 time-based eating schedule? I am not keto. I'm not carnivore. I'm not vegetarian. I'm not vegan. I'm none of the above. I will say that I generally tend to stay more towards the low carb eating habits than not. I think it's very helpful. I think we, as a society, abuse carbs. I think we have a sugar addiction. And I need to break myself free of that addiction. So I do restrict them. And when I do have carbs, they are generally complex carbs as opposed to simple carbs. Are there any questions? Katie, Mindy Pells has helped me so much to eat fast with my hormones. Awesome. That is awesome, awesome, awesome. I also see that my image has gotten horrible on TikTok. Can somebody tell me if the image of is it blurry on all of the platforms or just TikTok? Can somebody, I know it is Tracy. Can somebody jump over to one of the other platforms and just let me know if it's blurry? If it's blurry for you, I apologize. I don't want to stop the live stream. We'll just keep going. Blurry on TikTok. I'm sorry. What's up, Misha? How are you? Okay, guys. It's just TikTok. That's all, my man. It's just TikTok. Patricia. Okay. I'm getting ready to move. I thought it was because I had my glasses off. Bro. Okay, guys. It is blurry over there as well. Guys, it sounds like I'm having feed problems with my internet connection, and I apologize. Can you guys hear me okay? Can you hear the words that are coming out of my mouth okay? Is that, or am I getting choppy with my words as well? We might just have to work through the blur. We're good with the words. Okay. I apologize for the blurry screen. I like to provide a lot of proof. It might be more challenging with the proof when I'm blurry, so I will provide it here. No, Ben, it is not. I will have a conversation with you, Ben. Let me get to the end of this, and we will definitely answer questions, okay? I want to have a conversation. Okay, so step 2 of the protocol, folks, is consuming more chlorogenic acid. Now, what is chlorogenic acid? Chlorogenic acid is a naturally occurring polyphenol. So polyphenols occur in nature. They occur in foods, drinks that are natural, right? So chlorogenic acid is a naturally occurring polyphenol. It occurs in certain fruits, certain vegetables, nuts, seeds, green tea, black tea. It's very abundant in yerba mate tea, and it is most abundant in nature in a green coffee bean. So let's talk about that. Green coffee bean. Because it is so abundant in a coffee bean, there's a lot of research that revolves around chlorogenic acid and coffee consumption. So I'm going to talk quite a bit about coffee, and it's merely to make because a lot of the research is done around that. But let's talk about some of the things that chlorogenic acid has been shown to assist with. Starting with, and I am sorry, this is awful. This image is awful. I am sorry, guys. I'm sorry. What can I do? Gotta love the internet, right? I think it's time to upgrade my internet. I'm sorry. Okay. Chlorogenic acid. Consuming more chlorogenic acid. There are a number of things that have been shown to. I'm sorry, guys. It's as distracting for me as it is for you guys. It is as distracting as it is for me as it is you guys. I can see myself clearly on my screen, but I can see what my image looks like on TikTok, and I've been told that it's similar on those. Okay. All right. You can hear me. We just keep going. Hopefully the image will clear up. I'm going to send a little thing off. Okay, let's just dive in. Chlorogenic acid, consuming more chlorogenic acid. I apologize for the image, guys. I don't know what to do here. It's awful, and I apologize. So, what is chlorogenic acid, and why does it help? Well, what do we know about chlorogenic acid? We know that it's been scientifically proven to suppress appetites, to aid in weight loss, to help lower blood pressure, to help promote insulin sensitivity, to help increase our body's own GLP-1 production. So what is GLP-1? Glucagon-like peptide 1. It's an incretin hormone in our gut. It's developed in our gut. And what they have found is that when GLP-1 levels are elevated, glucose and insulin are suppressed. When GLP-1 levels are elevated, our appetites are suppressed. When GLP-1 levels are elevated, stomach dumping slows down. When GLP-1 is elevated, everything just gets, the fat cell shrinks. It's of course, we're excited to raise our GLP-1. Now, why are we as a population having lower GLP-1 levels? Well, it's because we aren't eating as many of those foods, right? We're eating too many of the highly processed foods. We're not eating enough of the foods that stimulate GLP-1 production naturally. So what do? We go to an injectable like Ozempic or Mounjaro, and those are receptor agonists. They're GLP-1 receptor agonists. They're causing our bodies to produce more GLP-1. Or we could just eat the food that doesn't. Stop eating the food that doesn't, start eating the food that does. Same thing with blood pressure and all those. So let's talk about this. I'm going to dive into some of the proof, and it's going to be very difficult to see, so I apologize. But let me share this tab. Okay, this tab right here, which I know you can't read, please trust me. This is Google. I went to Google and typed, what food has the most chlorogenic acid? It said chlorogenic acid is a natural antioxidant found in a variety of fruits and vegetables. Studies have shown that consuming high in chlorogenic acid can help reduce the risk of developing cancer. Foods high in chlorogenic acid include black coffee, apples. There you go. Okay, now, this is a study I found on PubMed, NIH.gov. This is a government website. It's an official website of the United States government. This is a website that people, it looks like it might have cleared up a little bit, huh? It's better. Wonderful. Looks like it's just my camera that's blurry. It looks like when I share a screen, it's clear. It's just my camera. That's awesome. Okay. So the effects, this is a study that I found on PubMed. I'm glad you can see this. It's not going to be blurry. The effects of chlorogenic acid on blood pressure. This is a systematic review and meta-analysis of randomized clinical trials. This is pretty powerful. This was done in 2014, 2015. And what they found was, in conclusion, the evidence from published randomized clinical trials suggests that chlorogenic acid intake causes statistically significant reductions in systolic and diastolic blood pressures. We've got proof that chlorogenic acid helps lower blood pressure. Now, I know that I've got, that's awesome. You guys can read it. I'm assuming that that's going to be the case across all the platforms. Now, I'm fortunate enough to be joined by Craig Dawson on TikTok, and Craig is a nurse practitioner. Craig, is that a powerful statement? Is that a powerful statement? And first off, this is a systematic review and meta-analysis of randomized clinical trials. In conclusion, the evidence from published randomized clinical trials suggests that chlorogenic acid intake causes statistically significant reductions in systolic and diastolic blood pressures. Okay, let's look at the next study. This one here, chlorogenic acid improves glucose tolerance, lipid metabolism, inflammation, and microbiota composition in diabetic mice. Craig says, yes, that's good data. That's awesome. Thank you, Craig. Okay, so how many people listening to me right now would like to improve their glucose tolerance as well as their lipids metabolism? would like to improve their inflammation. Okay, chlorogenic acid does all that and more. If we go to the results showed that chlorogenic acid decreased body weight and improved glucose tolerance and insulin resistance, and these effects were similar to those of metformin. These effects were similar to those of metformin. Now, this study right here, this is actually a review, again, from PubMed Central this time, roles of chlorogenic acid on regulating glucose and lipids metabolism. This is a review. For example, it is reported that daily consumption of 3 to 4 cups of decaffeinated coffee containing high contents of chlorogenic acid significantly reduced the risk for type 2 diabetes by 30%. Chlorogenic acid is a novel insulin sensitizer that potentiates insulin action similar to the therapeutic action of metformin. Guys, again, I want to point out, chlorogenic acid, we know that I've just shown you proof that it lowers blood pressure. It acts in a similar way to metformin, and it's found in apples. It's found in pears. It's found in certain vegetables, nuts, seeds. It's very abundant in chia seeds, green tea, black tea. It's very abundant in yerba mate tea. It's most abundant in coffee. We aren't eating those foods. And because we aren't eating those foods, we're getting sicker. And all of us would say, what's making us sicker is the foods that we're eating, right? Well, here you go. This is just a prime example on something that we should be keying in on when we do eat. How many people are listening to me right now? How many people are listening to me right now that have are currently using a GLP-1, something like a Ozempic or a Mounjaro, Zepbound, something like that? How many people are listening to me that are currently using one of those? If that is you, just type the word me. This is an interesting study right here. A chlorogenic acid-induced increase in GLP-1 production. Chlorogenic acid helps induce your own GLP-1 production. Good morning, Keith. How are you? Indeed, there is recent evidence that coffee increases production of the incretin hormone glucagon-like peptide 1, GLP-1. Boom. That's what your Mounjaro is trying to do, right? That's what your Ozempic is trying to do. Coffee does it. Now, this guy right here, I always like to talk about this guy because I think he's brilliant. I love listening to him. I would give him a follow everywhere that you can find him. Every social media platform you can find him, I would give him a follow and just listen to what he says. He's brilliant. His name is Dr. Andrew Huberman. He is an associate professor of neurobiology at Stanford Medicine. This is his profile on med.stanford.edu. It says right there, Andrew D. Huberman, an associate professor of neurobiology and by courtesy of psychiatry and behavioral sciences. Now, Dr. Huberman received his bachelor's degree from the University of California, Santa Barbara, his master's degree from the University of California, Berkeley, his PhD from the University of California, Davis, and his postdoctorate work came from Stanford. The guy is sharp. The reason I bring him up is I'm going to show you a video clip of Dr. Andrew Huberman talking about GLP-1 and how it can be stimulated with yerba mate tea.
Down in South America, was looking at Gila monsters, those really scary things, and he realized they don't have to eat very often. I wonder if they're hungry all the time or not. Turns out it takes their blood, isolates a peptide, which turns out to be GLP-1, puts it into other animals, and realizes it suppresses appetite. Amazing, right? Like this is what I love about biology. Some dude who studies Gila monsters. Turns out humans make GLP-1. GLP-1 is stimulated by things like yerba mate tea.
Things like yerba mate tea. I think that's powerful, right? That is this guy right here. It's stimulated by things like yerba mate tea. How many people are taking an injectable right now that has a potential side effect of thyroid C-cell tumors, including cancer? or gastroparesis, or, you know, converting a body from a hypertrophic fat store to a hyperplastic fat store, yerba mate tea, that's one of the sharpest minds you'll ever come across talking about yerba mate tea. And again, what is it that's heavy consumption or heavy in yerba mate tea? Chlorogenic acid. How about that? Okay. Folks, is there any questions about step 2 of the protocol? If there are questions, ask the questions. I'm looking down at my phone right now so that I can see the questions on TikTok. I'm not seeing any questions coming in from any of the other platforms. It looks like we've got quite a few viewers on those other platforms. Thank you for joining me, by the way, on those platforms. I hope you're learning something from this. If one of you could type something into the comment section, just so that I know that our connection is connected there. And if I don't respond, it's not that I'm trying to be rude. It means that our connection is limited, which it seems to be through this blurry image anyway. Okay. Nobody asking any questions. I want to talk about a supplement that I consume. And the supplement, I'll tell you why I use it. This guy right here, Dr. Ben Bikman, the world's leading metabolic scientist. This guy right here has studied the supplement that I use, and it's a yerba mate extract. We just heard Dr. Andrew Huberman talking about yerba mate. This is a yerba mate extract. Now, a yerba mate extract, Dr. Ben Bikman has studied this particular one and found that it increases GLP-1 production by up to 70% during a fasted state. Up to 70% during a fasted state. If you're on TikTok, I did a video on TikTok. I do edit a video on TikTok where you can see Dr. Bikman actually mouthing those words. You can hear him actually saying it himself. He's publishing that study right now, so I cannot show you the exact study. However, I can show you this study, and this is another one that Dr. Ben Bikman did. It's published. It's on, I found this on PubMed. Yerba mate supplement exerts beneficial tissue-specific effects on mitochondrial efficiency and redox status in healthy mice. That's Dr. Ben Bikman right there. He studied the exact same thing. Now, that particular tea that I drink has 10 times the chlorogenic acid of a typical cup of coffee, about 20 times the chloric acid of a typical cup of Unimate. This company, they start with the yerba leaf from South America. They're buying it from those original farmers. They still fire roast it in a very similar way to the way that it's always been fire roasted, but then they stop the traditional process and they cleanse it. They purify it. They get rid of all the things that we don't want, like pesticides and heavy metals, and then they concentrate it. This particular one tastes like lemon. I love the flavor. It's delicious. It gives me an amazing boost of energy in the morning. I'm sipping one that's hot right now. I'll be drinking a cold one here shortly. Drink it hot or cold. It's wonderful. So are there any questions? What's up, Ron? How are you? Are there any questions about step 2 of the protocol, which is consuming more chlorogenic acid? Any questions about that at all? Or are we ready to move on to step 3? And Tanya, would you mind jumping over to the one that you said you were on and just typing something? I'm just curious if that's not Tanya, Tracy. Christina Copeland. What is GLP? GLP-1 is glucagon-like peptide 1. It's an incretin hormone that our bodies produce that helps lower glucose, insulin, lower or shrink the fat cell, slow stomach dumping. It's what all of these injectables, Mounjaro, Ozempic, they're trying to increase our body's own GLP-1. So those are doing it. Dr. Ben Bikman, world's leading metabolic scientist, says this does this up to 70% during a fasted state. Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely, Ben. Okay, guys. I'm going to jump into step 3 of the protocol. There's only 3 steps, so if you're here for the ride, we're getting towards the end of the ride. Step 3 of the protocol is consuming more fiber. I want to jump over here. Here is a study that I've recently found on PubMed Central. It's not necessarily new. It's January, February 2017, Closing America's Fiber Intake Gap. And if we read just the abstract, the first line of the abstract is very, very powerful to me. Adequate intake of dietary fiber is associated with digestive health and reduced risk for heart disease, stroke, hypertension, certain gastrointestinal disorders, obesity, type 2 diabetes, and certain cancers. Is there a huge lag over on the FB? I'm sorry, FB. A huge lag, I'm told. I'm sorry. Okay. So, adequate intake of dietary fiber is associated with digestive health and reduced risk for heart disease, stroke, hypertension, certain gastrointestinal disorders, obesity, type 2 diabetes, and certain cancers. All of those things we found on Dr. Bickman's chart. This thing right here, remember? It's because they're all caused by insulin resistance. If you are insulin resistant, you're at a higher risk for all of those. So how does fiber help? And that same study, by the way, let me find it again, would suggest that only 5% of Americans are getting their recommended daily intake of fiber. Sorry, I don't mean to cough on you. Got to wet my throat. 5% of Americans are getting their recommended daily intake of fiber. About 15.1 grams is what they're saying the average American is getting right now in the United States. This is a chart of what they suggest we get. Now, remember, these are the recommended daily allowances. These are the low end of the scale. A child 1 to 3 years old should be getting 19 grams. The average American is getting 15. Now, a woman between 9 and 18 should be getting 26 grams, 19 to 50, 25 grams. A male, 9 to 13 should be getting 31 grams, 14 to 50, they should get 38 grams. And again, these are the minimal. Most of the scientific community is saying we should all get over 50 grams of fiber per day, but we're getting 15. Now, why is that affecting our health? Well, fiber helps our body naturally regulate its glucose. How does fiber help our bodies naturally regulate its glucose? Well, there are two kind of categories of fiber. There is a soluble and an insoluble. So soluble fiber dissolves in water, insoluble fiber does not. So insoluble fiber, I like to talk about quinoa. We're relatively familiar with quinoa. It's a whole grain that you'll boil to tenderness. Quinoa is a great example of insoluble fiber. It does not dissolve in water. It will get tender, but it's not going to dissolve. And in fact, when you eat it, if you look in the toilet the next day, it looks exactly the same. It went through your body kind of like a scrub brush. It got rid of all of the stuff that we're not going to absorb, the things that we don't need, and we flush that out the backside. I'm trying not to be too graphic there, but it plays a huge role. It gets rid of the stuff that we don't need. Now, soluble fiber forms a thick, sticky, fibrous matrix in your gut tract, and it slows down your body's ability to absorb the carbohydrate or to convert it to glucose. It really slows down that carb absorption. And instead of getting a quick high glucose spike, we get a slow, gradual climb. And of course, if we have a quick high glucose spike, what does that do to our insulin? We get a quick high insulin response. And we don't want that. Remember, hyperinsulinemia, the elevated insulin, is what's causing that problem. Now, why would we get a quick high glucose and then a quick high insulin spike? Because there's no fiber. When we have the adequate amount of fiber, we get a slow, gradual climb. And what does that do? We get a slow, gradual climb of our insulin. We're staying out of that. It's easy to make a connection to our diet is stripping us of the fiber, just as it is our chlorogenic acid. It's stripping us of that. We need to get back to more of a whole food diet. Get rid of these highly processed foods. Okay? Now, if you look now, Dr. Ben Bickman, this guy right here, and I've also heard Dr. Mark Hyman say the exact same thing. So I've now heard multiple doctors say it, but Dr. Bickman says that if it comes in a box or a bag and has a barcode, it's probably highly processed. Avoid it. Another way to look for highly processed foods is look in the center aisles of the grocery store. If it's in the center aisle, it's probably highly processed. Get away from it. Leave it alone. You don't want it. Okay, so where do we find good sources of fiber in the grocery store? Shop the outer aisles and start in the produce section. The produce section is it's a wonderful area for all sorts of different types of fiber, not just soluble, not just insoluble, not just pectin, not just psyllium musk, not just one type. It is a plethora of types of fiber in there that both fall under both the soluble and insoluble. So go over to the fruit section and get a wide variety of fruits. At the fruit section, we want to stick to skin on, less sweet. And there are a couple exceptions too here, okay? Skin on, less sweet. So we want to consume things that we can eat the skin of, like apples, strawberries, blueberries, blackberries. And of course, when I say skin on, it sounds like you shouldn't eat avocados. That is an exception. We definitely want to eat avocados, okay? Avocado is a superfood. Eat those. When we're talking about skin off, I'm really talking about a lot of the tropical fruits, things like oranges and bananas and that sort of thing. We want to minimize those. Those cause high glucose spikes. If you're a diabetic, you know that. If you're a non-diabetic, you probably know that as well. What do you give a diabetic when their glucose is low? An orange. So you probably know that anyway. It spikes your glucose. We don't want to do that. So minimize those skin off tropical fruits. Minimize really sweet fruits like grapes. Okay. Now we're going to go over to the vegetable section and get a wide variety of vegetables, a wide variety of the leafy vegetables, a wide variety of the cruciferous vegetables. Over there, we're going to stick to above ground, less starchy vegetables. Above ground, less starchy. And that is absolutely a thing to do with our potato situation. Guys, we eat potatoes 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, don't we? And there's virtually no fiber in a cooked potato. It is causing a problem. It's high in the glycemic index. It's causing our blood glucose to spike. If you are a diabetic, again, you know this to be true, but we love it. Why do we love it? Because of the sugar. Sugar is an addiction, guys. It's an addiction. So minimize the potatoes. Make them a treat rather than a staple. If you're like I used to have it literally breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Hash browns, French fries, mashed potatoes. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, every day of the week. Okay. Add lots of color to your plates. Yes, white rice. I'm catching up on some of the comments. White rice is not good. Yeah, exactly. In fact, did anybody know that China has a higher diabetes rate than the United States, as does India, as does South Africa? Higher diabetes rates than the United States. We're told the sad American diet, right? The standard American diet, it's making people sick. Those are countries where we wouldn't classify them as being obese, but they have a higher diabetes rate than we do. It's because of all of the sugar, guys. It's not helping. So let's minimize that, increase your fiber. I want to talk about a fiber supplement that I take. And as with the tea, I'm never suggesting that supplementation is necessary. You can change this through your diet at the grocery store, selecting the proper foods. By selecting the proper foods. So if you struggle with getting all of the proper foods all of the time, if you struggle with hopping onto a very strict diet, then supplementation may be necessary. That's where that falls into place, okay? Let's talk about supplementation. We're not talking about replacing. We still need to focus on a better diet. So supplement a not so perfect diet with these, okay? Now, a fiber supplement that I use has been around for 35 years. It was developed by Rexall Pharmacy, and maybe some of you remember them. At one point, they were very, very prominent throughout North America. They are not quite so popular. I mean, they're not so prominent in the United States anymore. Big Walgreens and those types of companies, really kind of corporate America, kind of crushed the independent stores that were Rexall, but they're still pretty prominent in Canada. 35 years ago, Rexall put together a blend of 7 different plant-based fibers. And they paired it with a multivitamin. They did think that vitamin supplementation was going to be necessary, that our foods were becoming less nutritious, and they thought that vitamin supplementation was going to be necessary. So they took a blend of fiber and paired it with a multivitamin, put the two together, and it became a fiber and multivitamin combination therapy. There's a mouthful. Fiber and multivitamin combination therapy. Now, that fiber and multivitamin combination therapy is somewhat groundbreaking. It's been studied all over the world. In fact, there are 5 separate patents on that blend of fiber from Rexall. There are more than a dozen clinical validation studies that are done on that. In fact, if you're in the medical world, that blend of fiber is in the physician's desk reference, the PDR. That blend of fiber, Dr. Ben Bickman is the director of the Scientific Advisory Board. We're talking about Dr. Ben Bickman. He is the director of the Scientific Advisory Board. I see Gary. What's up, brother? Glad to know that we've got some connectivity there. Glad to know that I've got some connectivity over there. Okay. What's up, Gary? Good morning. Okay, so clinical validation studies, that's what matters, right? I want to go and play a video from Dr. Ben Bickman and talking about statin medications, statin therapy. And a lot of people are on statin therapy. That's cholesterol-lowering medications. This is Dr. Ben Bickman talking about the dangers that could be associated with statin therapy.
Cholesterol is a molecule of life. Despite our general societal fear of it, it is involved in countless processes within every cell of the body. Unfortunately, our fear or hatred of cholesterol has given rise to the use of statins, which is a general class of medication that acts to inhibit the body's ability to create cholesterol. Well, that is a good way, a statin, to lower your cholesterol. There are consequences to this. Here's a manuscript that was just published in the European Journal of Pharmacology, and it outlines the evidence implicating statins as a molecule or a drug that increases the risk of insulin resistance and therefore type 2 diabetes. Ironically, insulin resistance is a greater predictor and risk factor for heart disease than LDL cholesterol is. So tragically, and again, ironically, despite lowering cholesterol levels, by increasing insulin resistance, we may be making the problem even worse. Cholesterol.
Okay. You'll notice on here at the top right, Dr. Syed, that's a cardiologist. He is a cardiologist, and he's talking about the same thing that I'm talking about. He's a big fan of it. When we're done with this, guys, go sifting through my videos, and you'll find a very common theme amongst my videos. In fact, go watch that video. I want to talk briefly about the use of statin medications and diabetes, exactly what Dr. Bickman was just now talking about. This study right here, done in September of last year, looks at statins and the risk of type 2 diabetes. If we scroll down here, we will find the conclusion, the concluding remarks. In a meta-analysis of 15 observational studies, the risk of type 2 diabetes was 55%. In 4 individual studies, the risk of incident type 2 diabetes was from 36 to 48%. And in the U.S. veteran study, 21 to 22% for low and medium potency statins and 34% for high potency statins. That's just validating what Dr. Bickman was just saying. They are causing diabetes. This study right here, again on PubMed Central, done in July of last year, assessing the link between statins and insulin intolerance. This is a systematic review that looked at nearly 47 million participants. The findings suggest that the use of statins is associated with a decrease in insulin sensitivity and insulin resistance. Again, we have proof that statin medications are causing the problem. This is the PDR. Maybe you're familiar with it looking like this. This is that book that your doctor or your physician's assistant, your nurse practitioner, your medical professional had on their desk. This is what they would go to look up information about commonly prescribed medications. Things like Lipitor, Crestor, atorvastatin calcium, things like that. You have access to their internet, their web-based version of that book. There's no membership. You could just go there, type in pdr.net, prescriber's digital reference. It's part of the physician's desk reference suite of goods. You can type in things like Lipitor. Type in Lipitor, hit search, and it'll bring up Lipitor, also known as atorvastatin calcium. That's the number one prescribed medication for cholesterol lowering, statin. We can go over to adverse reactions, and the moderate adverse reactions, number one on the list is diabetes mellitus. If you go to Crestor, search Crestor, rosuvastatin calcium. If you're on rosuvastatin, hit summary. Go to the adverse reactions. Number two, moderate adverse reaction, diabetes mellitus. It's in the PDR. It's in there. Okay. Now, let's talk about what Rexall Pharmacy developed. What Rexall Pharmacy did, and let's start by going here. Go to Google and ask Google, what is the top heart hospital in the United States? Google will tell you Cleveland Clinic is the top heart hospital in the United States. Why do I talk about them? Well, because the Cleveland Clinic studied a certain fiber and multivitamin combination therapy from Rexall Pharmacy. The Cleveland Clinic has now done a clinical validation study on that blend of fiber. Let's see. If I scroll down, you will see this is from the preventative cardiology section of the Cleveland Clinic, submitted November 15, 2001, and accepted February 14, 2002. They found that it caused statistically significant reductions in LDL, cholesterol, overall total cholesterol, triglycerides. Here it is right here. LDL, total cholesterol, it improved HDL, it improved triglycerides, overall body weight, glucose, ApoB, it improved everything. And they would go on to conclude such a product, if taken regularly, could reduce cardiovascular risk on a population basis and potentially decrease the need and or dose for lipid-lowering prescription drugs. The top heart hospital in the United States, one of the best in the world, was suggesting more than 20 years ago there was a solution for the high cholesterol, and it could be done with plant-based products, all natural, no side effects. If you go to Google and ask, who is the home of the glycemic index? It says the International Glycemic Index database and website are led by Professor Jenny Brand-Miller at the University of Sydney, Australia. Now, the University of Sydney is the home of the glycemic index. I'm sorry, I hadn't shared that page. It's the home of the glycemic index. In fact, if you type glycemicindex.com into your web browser, it will take you to the University of Sydney, Australia. There you can hit the About page, and it will talk about her. That is Professor Jenny Brand-Miller. She's an internationally recognized authority on carbohydrates and the glycemic index with more than 250 scientific publications. There are few people, if any, on earth that understand glucose regulation, the glycemic index, the insulin index, quite like Professor Jenny Brand-Miller. The reason I bring her up is Professor Jenny Brand-Miller studied the same product. And in this study, she found that it lowered the glycemic index of all 3 test foods, namely white rice, white bread, and mashed potato, from high to medium. That's what you have to do. That's what we have to do. We've got to avoid foods that are high. In this study, because she didn't stop there, she studied it a second time. In this study, she found that it lowered blood glucose by 20 to 28%. Those are massive, massive, massive numbers. Okay? It lowered blood insulin levels by 13 to 27%. And in fact, those are 13-year-old studies with the new information that we have from continuous glucose monitors. We've now got a better way to look at glucose through the CGMs and see what actually is happening. With CGMs, we've actually now found a 34 to 37% reduction in blood glucose when we drink it immediately before we eat. So, are there any questions? Those products, by the way, I forget to mention, are also in the PDR. The Dr. Ben Bickman, this dude right here, is the director of the scientific advisory board for it. Both products are in the physician's desk reference. I will touch on them real quick, and then we'll jump over to a Q&A. Both products come in a kit. If you're interested in the products, both products come in a kit. The kit costs in US dollars $159 per month. And I want to say in US dollars because they're available in over 50 countries around the world. So it's not new. It's been around for some time. That kit is helping people all over the world. So $159. The manufacturer offers a money-back guarantee. If after 3 months of using the product you're not satisfied, ask for a refund. They'll give you all your money back. But they are guaranteeing effectively that you'll lower your glucose, you'll lower your A1C, you'll lower your blood pressure, you'll lower your cholesterol, all of these things. You'll lower those things. If you don't, ask for a refund. In fact, they just partnered with an at-home A1C company. They are getting none of the sales whatsoever, but what you can do is you can order 2 at-home A1C kits, 2, as proof. What is the best form of proof is your blood. Take this thing for 90 days. You get 1 A1C kit when you start and 1 A1C kit for 90 days later. They are so willing to back their product. They are so firm in their conviction that you will lower your A1C that they've now partnered with an independent company to look at your A1C, and you can see it for yourself at home that it will lower your A1C. That's what they're willing to do. And if you're not happy, ask for a refund, okay? So if there is anybody interested in the products, do me a favor and type the word help, or interested, type the word interested, and I'll know that you're interested in how to buy those products. Otherwise, let's go to a Q&A. I'm wide open now for questions and answers. Let's see, C505, just checking my sugar, 148 fasting. That's pretty, that's in the morning. What is it doing postprandial? Jim, did I change what I eat? Do you still eat comfort food? I do from time to time. Comfort food, I love it just like everybody else, but it's a treat, a real treat from time to time. Actually, I just want to touch on it real quick. Guys, there's a link in my bio. I don't care what platform you're watching me on. There is a link in my bio. If you like the information that you got from my presentation today, then if you use that link in the bio, you will get me to help you along your health journey. And I would love to help as many people as I possibly can. I enjoy that. So there's a link in my bio to purchase the products. That, by the way, is the manufacturer's website. It's not mine. I love the question, though, Elaine. What other questions do we have? And I'm having to look down at my phone. I apologize for not looking at the camera. I've got to look at my phone to get the comments. Are there any questions or comments for me? And I can't see your questions or comments on the other platform. I can only see them on TikTok, it looks like, or one other one. Oh, is it Tim? Okay. Hi, Tim. Tim, did you find this to be helpful, bud? Okay, so I just finished my first tea, and I'm going to immediately transition to a second tea. Ben asks, how long before Unimate starts to lower blood pressure? Everybody's different. I wish I had a one-size-fits-all answer for that question. Everybody's different. There's one gentleman, I don't know if he's still in here or not. Keith had high blood pressure for more than almost 50 years, was medicated for it. Nobody's not in here. Doesn't look like he's here in there. Dave 6470, how do I order it? Give me a second, Dave. I'll address you. 1 second. Andre, thank you. Keith, 50 years he was high blood pressure, medicated for 47. And in like a month and a half, his blood pressure came down. Me, 25 years high blood pressure, medicated, took me like 8 months. So some people, it's faster than others. Just know that as you stay, like anything, Ben, consistency. Stay consistent to the protocol and things will happen. I love the other side of that. For me personally, it took forever for my blood pressure to just normalize like everybody else seemed to get quick, right? Some people see immediate weight loss. Other people, not so much. So everybody's a little bit different. The key to it is consistency. That's why they say 90 days. Give them 90 days, and after 3 months, if you're not satisfied, then you go back and ask them for a refund, okay? Okay, Dave /6470 on TikTok. Do you know how to get to my homepage, Dave? And in fact, anybody that doesn't know how to order it, no matter what platform you're on, because I know I'm on like 10 different platforms right now. No matter what platform you're on, there is a link in my bio. The link looks something like this. Let's see. I'm going to share this. This is my homepage on TikTok. Can't do that. That's my homepage on TikTok. When you're there, you will see my bio. My bio says, I'm a competitive barbecue cook who fought the Grim Reaper and won. This is my story. That bio is the same on every single platform that I'm on, okay? No matter where you're at, you'll find that. Near there, you will find the link. The link is my link tree. It says linktree / the Healthy Pitmaster. If you click that link, when you click that link, the very first link is the Feel Great system. And I want to touch, oh, dang it. When you click that link, it will take you here. That is my link tree, okay? The very first link is the Feel Great system. I do want to point out real quick, you are using my wife and I's referral code for a lifetime discount to the manufacturer, okay? This is the manufacturer's website. If you are like me and skeptical, and you should be, and you want to go over to these guys and type it in, you'll find it's like $260. It is way overpriced and it's not authorized. The biggest thing is it's not authorized. Okay. So let's come back here. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. If you wanted to find out information about the products, you'll see the Unimate and Balance. There are my live streams they go global. So if you are in Middle East, Far East, Australia, you may be seeing BIOS Life instead of Balance. BIOS Life and Balance are one and the same. Okay. If you hit Learn More, it will take you to the product page for that particular product, and you can see the ingredients, the nutritional information. You can see it right there. All sorts of information. If you go back to that home page and scroll down towards the bottom, you'll see the Science tab. That will redirect you to unicityscience.org. If you want to read those clinical validation studies, right? The Cleveland Clinic, the University of Sydney, just hit that research tab, and that will take you to the clinical validation studies. Just scroll through here and read these. You're looking at changing your life. Read these and get familiar with them. That's how we're going to get educated, right? Educate yourself. If you want to see the one from the Cleveland Clinic, this is it. Just hit that See Full Study. That will take you to that study. Up at the top left, you'll see Science Team. If you go to the Science Team, About Us, you will see Meet the Science Team. You'll find that we have 3 PhD level doctorates on staff in the research and development department. And we've got a scientific advisory board that Dr. Ben Bickman, again, the world's leading metabolic scientist, is the director of our scientific advisory board. So we've got clinical validation, you've got scientific validation. We're getting more and more and more of the medical professionals coming over and talking about this as well. And then you, at the end of all that, you have social validation with people like myself and other people in the comment section that have reversed their diabetes or lost tons of weight or had some sort of other benefit from the system, reversal of PCOS, ED. Lots of things are getting better. Okay. I hope that answered that question. Okay, so Ben on TikTok says, got it. How do you know when to reduce your metformin? Ben, you always, always, always have a conversation with your medical professional. Now, for me personally, I went and I started seeing my glucose numbers, my fasting glucose. I hope you're testing your glucose regularly. By the way, all too often I will start talking to somebody who is diabetic, and I'm like, how often do you test your blood sugar? And they're like, oh, once a month. That's dangerous, guys. If you are a type 2 diabetic, I was poking myself between 3 and 5 times a day. I wanted to know what my glucose was all the time. Okay. And if you're that person, then you'll almost instantaneously see your glucose number start to plummet. It's amazing. It's fascinating how quick this happens. Like in a matter of days, you'll see your glucose levels coming down. After a month or two, have a conversation with your doctor. Hey, doc, I think I might have this under control. Can I reduce my metformin or try coming off of it for a month? Can I come off it for a month or 2 months or 3 months? But before the next appointment, if I'm testing myself 5 times a day, if I vow to test myself 5 times a day, can I come off of the metformin? Have a conversation with your doctor. That's how I did it, Ben. Ben is wearing a monitor on your arm. I wear a CG. I wear a Freestyle Libre 3. Love it. I was able to see my own glucose. I had a conversation with my doctor. I didn't get my CGM until afterwards. I just wanted to watch it. But you see your glucose. You would know right away. So, Ben, give me a call, bud. Give me a call or send me a text. You've got my number. Did you get my text? Yeah, we have talked, Ben, right? I believe we've talked, Ben. Oh, that's a good one. This, by the way, is a combination of 2 different flavors, the apple spice and the lemon. Put them together in a 1-liter bottle. That's good. Okay, Ben, send me a text and let's communicate. Is Mr. Dawson still in here? Our nurse practitioner? Hi, Chris. By the way, I'm going to ask this question. I am across multiple platforms right now. I'm going to ask a question for everybody who is on the system right now, on whatever platform you're on. Do me a favor. If you are on the system, if you're on the Field Rate system, and do me a favor and just type how long you've been on it, a month, 6 months, a year. Just type how long you've been on it and what benefit you've received since you've been on it. Have you lost weight? Has it improved your glucose? Has it improved your high blood pressure? Just for everybody that's listening right now, check my glucose. Jean says she checks her glucose 4 times a day. Love that, Jean. That's responsible. That's what we need to be doing. Okay. Love the interaction, guys. I've loved the interaction. It looks like I've got a little bit of a better camera image. Ben says 3 days, better mood from the Unimate, lost a little weight. That's 3 days in. Love it, Ben. Laney started February 10th. So what are we? We're at about 3 months, down about 33 pounds. That's amazing. Tracy, just shy of 90 days. My energy is up. Sleep is better. I feel better. Down 17 pounds and 13 and a half inches. Love it. And I'm going to pick on Tracy here. Tracy is in my TikTok live stream. I love this. Tracy is a nurse, career nurse. And her husband found my live stream and listened to it and decided to order the system. Tracy, being in the medical profession, was extremely skeptical. But after a week of watching her husband, Mike, lower his glucose, stop needing insulin. In 1 week, he stopped needing his insulin. That was pretty quick. It doesn't happen like that for everybody, but that quick for everybody. But for him, it did. He started reducing his insulin like on day number 2. And she's sitting there watching this as a skeptic and saying, what the heck? And like a week later, decided to order the system for herself. And now she is almost a louder advocate for the system than him, which is funny. Husband's off 4 meds, Mike, the one I was just talking about, down 25 pounds and feels better also. Works more nights than days. Love that. Okay. Guys, I appreciate this. It seems like it's pretty quiet. I want to ask, Gene says almost 3 months, 16 pounds down, PB, normal A1C was 8.0, now 7.8. Do blood work again this coming week. Love it, Gene. Love it, love it, love it. When you went from 8 to 7.8? When did you? Oh, now you're 7.8. When did you get the 7.8 reading? His also Mike's A1C is trending down. Edward says on the system for 5. So Jean said 6 weeks. So she was an 8.0. 6 weeks later, she was a 7.8. So we're seeing reductions just like that. Edward Cable from TikTok, on system for 5 months, lost 45 pounds and lowered A1C from a 7 to a 5.5. Edward, that is awesome. That is awesome. Mike's at his 90 days. I love that. I love that. And the thing is Tracy, you're also saying you guys introduced the product to your neighbor. So if the idea of it is expensive, you think $159 is pretty expensive. Well, they have an incredible referral program. You can lower your price in the US by $10 by simply telling your brother, your sister, your best friend about it. Tell somebody about it. Steer them towards my live. I will explain it to them. You don't have to try and explain it to them. Just send them to my live stream. If they decide to order the system, we'll use your link. Right now, you're using my link to get onto the system. We'll use your link, and you'll get credit for it. That's the way this thing grows. That's how we are getting the word out, is by people who are actually benefiting from the system. What is your health worth, right? Tracy says, this system works, guys. I'm not seeing anything come over from Mr. Musk's platform, guys, and I am sorry. If you are typing things, I'm not seeing anything coming over. That's a connection thing between the platform that I'm using and the one that you're on. I'm not ignoring you. I hope you know that I'm not ignoring. I just not seeing any of your comments. I'm only seeing them from TikTok on my phone right now. So I apologize. I hope you got great information. If you have questions, send me a direct message. I respond to every single direct message. Okay, guys, real quick before I wrap it up, is there anybody that wants to order the system but does not know how to? And if that is you, if you want to order the system but you don't know how to, type the word help in the comment section. If you type the word help, I will know exactly what you are talking about. If you type the word help, I'll know exactly what you are talking about. Otherwise, I'm going to start wrapping things up. We got about, you need help. Link in my bio. Tracy. There is a link in my bio, folks. Also, if somebody sent you here, I just talked about referrals, right? If somebody sent you to my live stream to learn about that, don't use my link, use their link. Get with them. They will tell you how to order it, okay? We'll get you so that you're using their link and they get a product credit for it. So if you were referred to my live stream, get with the person who referred you here, and they will provide you the link and they'll get credit for it. Yes, you do. Got to keep it lively. Okay, folks, we are at, can we get the other 100 likes to get this thing over 10,000 likes on TikTok? 8 shares. I can't see how many new followers yet on TikTok. Let me see. Number of new followers on TikTok. 10,100 likes. Thank you, guys. Okay, guys, I do live streams across all of the social media platforms every Wednesday morning and every Sunday morning. We also do a science call where we involve medical professionals every Wednesday evening. So whatever platform you're watching me from right now, I will be doing live streams from pretty regularly. If we're on TikTok, I do daily live streams. If you're on one of the other ones, not so regularly, but every Wednesday morning and every Sunday morning. It'll be 8:30 in the morning, Wednesday morning, and 9 o'clock in the morning. And I'm talking about Mountain Standard Times every Sunday morning. I sleep in a little bit on Sunday. So otherwise, I go live every Monday through Friday on TikTok at 8:30 in the morning, every Saturday and Sunday on TikTok at 9 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday. So, by the way, my waist was 44. It's 37 in less than 3 months. How does that feel, Gene, to have your waist just shrunk by 7 inches in 3 months? Okay, guys, thank you very much for the interaction. I've enjoyed the interaction. Come back and watch the live. If you want to watch, I'll be live on TikTok tomorrow morning at 8:30 in the morning, Mountain Standard Time. So, 10:30 in the morning Eastern, 7:30 in the morning Pacific, I guess 9:30 Central. Come and see me tomorrow. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, don't hesitate. Reach out to me. Send me a direct message. I respond to everything. You guys have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, and we'll